Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Remake Rewind. I'm Mike as always. I've got my buddy Alex. How you doing, bud?
I'm good. I'm just trying to unpin myself from the goddamn screen on here on our video chat.
Yeah, this is weird. We, unfortunately, for whatever reason, the video chat that we normally use was not working on my end. It completely bricked my computer for 10 minutes. So we're trying a different thing. So forgive us if we're not our usual energetic and happy selves, because we're using technology that we're not used to.
We're sloth-like and depressed today.
Yes, but this is Remake Rewind. What we do is we talk about a movie, its remake or reboot, and just kind of talk about not necessarily which is better, but whether or not the remake or reboot has merit or if it should have happened. And we were very fortunate to see an early screening of Resident Evil last night. So we're going to be talking about the 2002 Resident Evil. And I apologize, I said the title wrong. It's Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, which is a bit of a mouthful. But we saw it last night, and now we're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, but first, we're going to talk about the original Resident Evil.
So going back to this one, 2002, this was huge. I was in 8th grade when this came out, and I saw it when it came out. All my friends saw it. This was right around the time the remake of the first game came out on GameCube. And, you know, this was kind of like, I don't know if this you would say that it was the height of the franchise, because the franchise is still going and making AAA games. But I loved this movie when it came out, and I loved the second one, and I'm pretty sure I've seen all the movies, but I think after the third one, every other movie I said, I'm not going to watch this one. And then I always end up watching it because I love going to the movies. And I watched these movies even though I hated them after the third one.
Yeah, I feel like, especially for the age that we were, it was very easy to watch the first few. And I don't think that, you know, speaking from a society standpoint, I don't think that the accepted drop in quality really happened until like the third or fourth movie. So it was enough to get you invested. And I think you and I are very similar. We're like, if we're moderately or like
we'll stick out a franchise just to finish.
Yeah, if we're in any way invested in this, or we were in the past, we'll just watch it begrudgingly.
And so we watched, funny enough, so you and I have been doing this podcast together for about a year and a half now. And this is the first time we actually watched something together, because we started just before the pandemic.
It was weird. I hated it.
You almost got us in a fight at the theater.
That'll be we'll save that for the what have you been up to, bud? Starting fights.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Like, I honestly cannot remember. Like, I was going through the IMDb and looking at each of the movies, and I remember like once you got into, like, I know Jill Valentine is in the second one. But like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth movies, I know each one they add like a major character like Leon or Claire Redfield or Chris Redfield, and Ada Wong I think pops up at some point. But I honestly don't remember any of the movies from the third one on. And the third one I just remember that was the most apocalyptic one, like in the desert wasteland. I pretty vividly remember the first two. Obviously the first one we just rewatched.
Remind me what happens in the second one.
So the second one is with Jill Valentine is getting and the other star agents. No, she's Claire Redfield. It's Sienna Miller. Okay. No, Sienna Gollery. So she's getting chased, and some of the other star agents are getting chased by the Nemesis, which is one of the characters from this one. At the end, he turns into they're like, put him in the Nemesis program in the original movie. And then Mila Jovovich shows up and like saves everybody. And then like they just try to escape from Raccoon City before it blows up.
Yeah.
So that's the second one. And they have the Nemesis going after him.
Word. Yeah. I think I've seen all of them, but I don't remember. Actually, you know what? I haven't seen all of them because the last one I just sort of fast forwarded through to see what happens.
So I
don't remember anything from the
final chapter, and then like wasn't there a movie after the final chapter? I can't remember. So it's like the final chapter and then Retribution. I think it went.
I mean, that sounds about right.
It's fucking nonsense. And like Paul W.S. Anderson did most of these movies. He didn't do all of them. I don't think he did the second one or the third one, and then he came back. But
that franchise really is his baby, and like I kind of I kind of like respect Mila Jovovich and Paul W.S. Anderson and just like this franchise as a whole for, I don't know, being this weird thing that exists for 15 years outside of like blockbuster filmmaking. Like it was his own thing and had its own fans. And I don't know if it was good or not, but like people genuinely like it and it sort of justified its own existence.
I don't know if anybody actually liked the ones after. I think they made just enough money to exist, and I think it was mostly just people being like, well, I guess I'll see this. But like Paul W.S. Anderson is interesting because he makes, like, he did the first Mortal Kombat,
Goddamn right he did.
which, you know, we covered. Event Horizon, which is fantastic. And then the remake of Death Race in 2008, which I actually think is a pretty solid movie. But then he also did all these Resident Evil movies, and then he also did the Monster Hunter movie, which apparently isn't very good. And that we actually covered it before your time, but his Three Musketeers, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, also with his wife Mila Jovovich. But yeah, I'm ready to get into this one. Am I summarizing this one, or are you summarizing this one? All right, so 2002, very loosely based off the first game, but essentially what's going on is it's made to look like an unknown person releases a virus in the Umbrella Corporation. Mia Jovovich wakes up naked at the beginning of her movies, like she does in most of her movies. She starts out naked, ends naked in most of her movies. It's a thing.
That's her trademark.
It's her trademark, but she has amnesia, but she's told quickly by these like soldiers that break into this mansion that she's a security guard for the secret entrance to the Umbrella Hive, which is an underground facility just outside of Raccoon City under this crazy, crazy big mansion, and that they need to go into the Hive and shut down the security system and find out what happened in the facility. And it turns out the virus makes zombies and other monsters, and they have to get rid of this psycho killer security system and survive the zombies. And that's pretty much it. There's twists and there's turns and there's like really, really techno metal, really headache inducing music.
Yeah. Man, you hit on a few points, a bunch of different things that I want to bring up.
Good. Let's discuss them.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the techno metal thing. This came out 3 years after Saw, and I didn't realize it when I was, a teenager going to see this, but revisiting it.
No, this did not come out 3 years after Saw.
Wasn't Saw 99?
Saw was 2004.
Oh, well, excuse me. Well, anyway, then it's not influenced by Saw, but I think it's influenced by a general thing happening in horror movies at that point, which is to have like pulsating techno music that also has like distorted guitars and shit,
like just dirty guitar playing.
Yeah, which I think is sort of like, when Nine Inch Nails and industrial music has sort of reached the mainstream, and now we can put it in horror movies, and it's not really offensive, but it's still like the perception of edginess. I think that's
and we had the new metal because we had Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, kind of just like this dirtier guitar music. Yeah, Rammstein, like just kind of dirty industrial
and
metal
I think
music.
The music in this was actually done by Marilyn Manson and Marco Beltrami. I think Beltrami did the Twin Peaks music, I believe.
Okay, that makes a little sense.
Yeah, but it was very. The music is not great in this. And I think especially for this property, like this kind of music works for like Saw and the other like gore porn movies that were sort of happening at this time. But I think I think there's something that's tonally off about doing that for Resident Evil, where I think the game and just the story and the environment are really served better by like a dreadful, creeping gothic score,
a tone,
aesthetic.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And this movie,
and like, sorry, just to finish that thought too, like Paul W.S. Anderson is not interested in that at all. And that's why this whole franchise is so much his vision. Like he's not doing what the games are doing in any way. So I guess if you're going to abandon it, then go whole hog and have a vision for it.
Right. So like the first movie doesn't have any characters from the game, any of them. And you have Alice as like the lead. But there's no Wesker, there's no Redfields, there's no Leon Kennedy.
Right.
None of the characters that we have grown to love over, the last 2 decades since 1998. The thing that's weird is because the other movies have gotten so bad, like I don't think it's unfair to say that most of these movies are pretty terrible. I think that's universally accepted. These are bad movies. But because this movie is so much better than the rest of them, I've always kind of looked back on this one like, this one's fun. This one's solid. I expected to go into this like, it's going to be a 2002 movie. The CGI is going to be a little dated, but it'll be fun. Oh, this was a little bit rougher than I expected.
That's funny. I had the opposite experience. I went in with very low expectations, and it was a little bit better than I remembered it being.
Well, good.
But
I'm glad.
but
Like,
flawed for sure.
yeah, like I didn't hate it. Like it didn't feel like, oh God, I got to get through this. I did fall asleep, but I
Yeah, you did.
have been traveling. Like I just got back from a week.
Who's to
in a
say
different
what the
time
cause
zone.
of falling asleep is?
Right. But I fell asleep like right at the middle of the movie, and then I woke up to credits. I'm like, son of a bitch, I gotta rewind and watch this.
This is neither here nor there, but can we talk about how many actors in this movie look like other actors?
Sure.
Eric Mabius looks like Dollar Store David Boreanaz.
Which one's that one? Which character?
Eric Mabius is the brother who's like trying to infiltrate the company, and then he gets turned into Nemesis at the end.
Nemesis at the end. Okay. So that that's Matt, and he's a police officer.
Right, and he looks just like David Boreanaz, but a little bit skinnier. Maybe a little bit.
I don't see that at all. I mean, they have this.
I've been
haircut
watching
an
Buffy, and I
angel.
completely see it.
Okay. Well, you know, agree to disagree, but okay.
The husband
Next one.
husband looks like Dollar Store Hugh Jackman.
He's the guy. He's the prince in A Knight's Tale. Who he's like, hey, Heath Ledger's cool, and I'm a prince, and that means something. So don't fucking doubt me. That's him.
Yeah, he looks like Hugh Jackman before he bulked up.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
he kind of looks like the fake Hugh Jackman in The Prestige.
yeah, exactly. I 150% thought that the head of the Special Forces team was Tony Todd.
No,
For I know it's not, but like for 5 minutes, he's got like
he's
this
in a
deep
lot
voice.
of the CW stuff. He was in Arrow, and then he was also in another DC product.
That's interesting because what's his name? Robbie Amell is in the other Resident Evil movie that we watched.
Oh, so he was the Martian Manhunter in Smallville, and then he was like the stepdad in Arrow. So he played like two different roles in the CW kind of movie TV show stuff.
The chick that plays like the tough squad member that survived until the end looks a lot like Letty from Fast and Furious too. That's a joke.
Letty from Fast Furious.
That's a joke.
Zing.
I was surprised to see
You
her.
know what's funny
I
about
was
her?
stoked that she showed up.
So she apparently is a huge fan of the games and told her agent, like, hey, if you ever hear of a Resident Evil movie being made, like, get me in.
That's awesome.
And like the agent did the good job.
Yeah,
So she got the role.
She was one of my I don't want to say favorite. She was part of the movie that I liked, that I enjoyed the most. I think she
was doing what she does best.
Yeah, she got a lot of really good lines like in the second half too.
Yeah, I mean, she was basically just doing Special Forces Letty, and it's the same character that she played in SWAT.
Yeah, well,
she played the same
listen,
character for a bunch of movies.
You don't go see Michelle Rodriguez in a movie because you're looking for dynamism or range. You go because you enjoy seeing her on screen.
And family.
And family. She feels like she's a part of the family now. My family.
Let's get into this movie. Yeah. I remember this being, everyone talks about how much this deviates from the games and how it's nothing like the games. But I mean, honestly, it's not too far off from the first game, which starts in a mansion and then you end up in an underground facility.
I don't remember the
Umbrella
facility
Corporation
from the first game at all. I only remember mansion.
Oh, maybe that's the second game. That's more the second game. But, you know, it has elements from the first and second game. Like, it's really not that much. Like, this one, honestly, kind of works as like a later Resident Evil game because they've gotten more action heavy.
I think it works fine the way it is, except for, you know, some purists who are going to want it to be exactly like the game until you see what somebody can do when they stick to the game.
Right. So, which we'll get to. But I remember the action being pretty solid in this. Like, obviously the CGI creatures, like the liquor and some of the other stuff wasn't very good. But, some other stuff was pretty solid. Like the zombies looked pretty good, but that's pretty easy to do zombies on a budget. And the dogs.
Zombies are easy to fuck up too, though. So, credit where credit's due.
So the zombies looked solid. The dogs, which are a staple of the game, looked pretty good. And it has that famous scene where Mia Jovovich runs up one wall, bounces off the other, and kicks the dog.
That was so stupid. Man, all of Mia Jovovich, I'm gonna say Mia like you, Mila. All of Mila Jovovich's like, they kept on doing like slow motion scenes for her. We were supposed to be like, oh shit, like she's hiding some latent superhero type abilities. But it was all just like bad slow motion and like not impressive.
And she trained for 3 months to do these stunts.
Did not show it all.
So she did all of her stunts except for one.
Maybe they should have had somebody else do them.
She did all the stunts except for like the scene where they're like hanging on the pipes.
Mhm.
And there's like the pipe breaks and she has to jump across, and her manager was like, there's a lot of like wires hanging and whatnot. It would be really easy to like catch your neck on that and like strangle yourself. So get a stunt person for that one. But it turns out like she punched like 3 actors in this movie doing her own stuff. So it's like maybe she shouldn't have been doing her stunts. Like nobody should be getting punched in the face by Mia Jovovich.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to get punched by somebody, maybe.
Sure. And apparently, like all the cuts and scrapes on her face throughout the movie, like she actually got making the movie. So it's like,
That's cool.
Was she the right person to be doing these stunts? Because she definitely got hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. I on the flip side of that, I kind of appreciate the dedication to the role and like getting into it.
I used to feel that way, and then which actor was it? Why can't I think of his name?
Tom
He
Cruise.
plays Machete.
Trejo.
Danny Trejo. So he had this really great thing where he's like, I know how much of a badass I am, but if I get hurt when I'm starring in something, the movie shuts down and all these people
Sure.
like lose their income. So like I used to I think, you know, obviously Tom Cruise is the boss. He produces all his own movies and he does all these crazy stunts.
He can also
It's
afford
cool.
to stop a movie for 6 months.
And he pays the people while he's doing like during COVID with the Mission Impossible movies, he paid for everyone's housing so they can be as safe as possible. So that's a little bit different, but I do kind of get it.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
So it depends. It really depends on the actor and what they're, you know, who's paying for the movie and whatnot. But getting back to the movie,
I thought go ahead.
No, I don't have it.
I'm just kind of shotgunning opinions.
Yeah.
We're talking about like stuff feeling cheap and how you thought the zombies looked good and stuff. And I don't, you know, I agree with that. But I felt like all of the corporate stuff, like before everybody gets killed, and just like the interiors of the hive, all looked really like hokey and cheap.
They look like there was a TV show that was trying to be a sci-fi TV show that got canceled or didn't get made, and they reused the sets.
Yeah, for sure.
And the gear, like the military gear, was not very good.
Yeah.
Like it looked like cosplay.
Which is also interesting because there's a location that we visit twice where the liquor is. I don't know what to call it, but they have all the cages that are just freestanding, and they have like the environments and stuff where they encounter the first zombie. And I thought that set was fantastic. You know, it's clearly something that they built for the movie.
No, that scene was cool. And then like the zombies, and like honestly, I was kind of impressed with some of the foreshadowing in this movie, and you know, making it look like something was going to happen and then it didn't. Like there's a scene where Letty
Call her Letty.
Michelle Rodriguez is you know, they're trying to get the train moving or something like that at the beginning of the movie, and she's like underneath and trying to plug in cables, and then somebody like pops down and scares her, and then you kind of see like a hole in the fence and everything. So like you start seeing these things, and I thought it did a pretty good job of kind of like setting the mood. Like as an audience, we know something's coming, but they don't know what's going on. Right. And then like the zombie floating in the water, and then it moves just after the crew like walks around a corner. So I thought it actually did a pretty good job of being like, nothing's happened yet, but it's gonna. Mm-hmm. And then I remember that scene when they're in the hallway and like the lasers. I thought that was such a cool scene when like, you know, first the laser goes, cuts the chick's head off, and then they try to jump it, and then it moves, and then it turns into a grid. Yeah. I thought that was such a cool scene when I was in middle school, but it definitely didn't age as well.
I mean,
the CG.
Yeah, the CG doesn't look great, but I still think that scene is
it's
fun and creative. Like, one of my notes says that it holds up.
And like the tension in that scene, because like they have their little hacker guy Kaplan, and he's just like, I'm gonna get it open, and he gets it open literally right as the lasers go through the boss, and he's just like, oh shit. Like the pacing on that was pretty cool.
This movie is like pretty gory, and I feel a little let down that we didn't see the cubed body on the ground, but I feel like that probably would have been very expensive
to have a bunch of little cubed meats.
Yeah, but I liked that.
Human meats.
I wanted to see that.
It was, I mean, I think if you say that this movie did anything well, I do think it was paced very well, and the tension wasn't bad. I think that the weakest point for me is one of the kind of the subplots of the movie is there's these defenses, and it like puts this gas all over the place, so the people in the mansion have amnesia. So you know, Mia Jovovich as Alice, and then like her husband dude have amnesia for most of the movie. And for most of the movie, you know, every time something significant happens, Alice gets a little memory back, and it's like painting it like, oh, she's the person who sabotaged everything at the beginning of the movie, and she's the one who like betrayed the cop guy's sister and caused all the events to happen. And it would be really effective if we didn't see the husband guy doing all the shit at the beginning of the movie. Like, you don't see his face, but you clearly see a man's body bumping into somebody and a man's chest and arm throw the vial. But then like the movie's trying to make it look like she did it. And it's just like, but clearly she didn't.
Yeah. I also really hate the effect that they used for the flashbacks.
The kind of the not black and white, kind of bluish.
It's not just the color, but also that like slow motion effect where it's like it's just like less frames per second. It's not really even slow motion.
Yeah. But like that could have been an interesting twist where like throughout the movie, because there's a point where Alice like tells people like, I'm the one who did this. I'm the bad guy. I don't remember doing it, but like that's not important now. Let's get the fuck out of here. And then like at the exact same time, you know, when they needed a twist, she and the husband guy remember it at exactly the same time, and then he just goes completely bad guy and like fucks them over. And it's just like, that was very convenient. And like it could have been an interesting twist if they didn't show us all that stuff at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like if they just did a POV shot or something, or you only saw the hands and you can't quite tell, I think that could have been interesting.
Yeah.
But
well, you know, talking about what this movie could have been, I feel like I had two big notes coming at the end, and I felt like this movie would have been better with a better lead. And I like Milla Jovovich, but this is like very early in her career, and I don't think she had a whole lot to work with. I think it would have been better with a better actor and a better written character, and just like maybe a little bit more emphasis on the story, and definitely a lot less of the like heavy metal industrial bullshit soundtrack. I think it would have been more interesting to focus on the sense of like dread and terror that came from the games, and with a little bit more focus on like the gothic aesthetic of the mansion, you know, in the vein of like Crimson Peak. Basically just like more of it in the mansion rather than this like crazy underground thing.
And a little less just over the top action. Like it was just like they were unloading clips and clips and clips. And like at the very end of the movie, you know, Michelle Rodriguez is like, oh, we're just about out of ammo. Yeah. And it's like, and that's a huge factor in the game where it's just like, you almost don't want to fire your gun. Like every time I play a Resident Evil game and I miss a shot and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. And I feel like that should be part of the story, right? Like they should be constantly like looking for ammo and trying to find creative ways to dispatch these zombies. And this kind of felt like, you know, we're mixing up timelines here, but I just thought of like the Raid Redemption. Like I think Paul W.S. Anderson would have been so fucking stoked if this movie was more like the Raid, just like crazy martial arts action sequences and stuff. And that's just like not really what I want from a Resident Evil game, at least based on the first few games.
And that's where the movies ended up going with Alice having telekinesis, and super strength and kung fu, and can jump up in the air and do Matrix style kicks and stuff. So, I mean, the movie obviously had a cultural relevance. Like they kept making these. Like obviously there was diminishing returns, and they did the crazy 3D one right at the height of the 3D stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know, 6 movies in a franchise where none of them are especially good. It's pretty crazy, and people.
Yeah.
There were hardcore fans of this franchise.
I'm saying, you like kind of got to respect it. Kind of.
Yeah, to an extent. I do agree. And they fucking tricked me into watching 6 or 7 of these movies. And honestly, after the 3rd one, every single time I'm like, I will not watch another one of these movies. And then some Thursday evening, Mike was bored and decides to go to a movie, and this is the only thing that's playing, and that's what I went and saw. So they got my money, and this was before AMC A-List. This was before Movie Pass, so they got my,
there's something to
$10 to $15.
There's something to that,
time.
Being able to get people to go see movies that they consciously don't think that they want to see.
And every time I watched it, I'm like, why did I pay to watch this? I did not enjoy this. And then I do it again. And then like by the end of the series, like you start seeing, like you get Leon, you get the Redfields, you get, Wesker, and like they're all like second fiddle to Alice, like people who lead multiple games. Like you've had multiple games with Leon as the protagonist, and multiple ones as Chris as the protagonist, and they're just like second fiddle to her. It's just super weird and kind of disrespectful to the games, but whatever.
Now that we've talked about it though, I low-key want to go back and watch the other movies, which is exactly what we're talking about.
I know, I was having the same kind of thought too, but I don't want to. I travel a lot, so like I could technically, I have enough time to do it because I'm on planes all the damn time, but do I really want to put myself through that? I don't know.
Call in and let us know if we should watch the rest of the movies. Maybe if people want us to talk about them, we can watch the other ones and do...
Like we did Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, but maybe like just a couple episodes to cover, like one episode will cover like 2 movies or something.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Write in
All
or
right.
call in if you want to hear it.
What have you been up to, bud?
I have a suggestion for this section. You can leave this in.
All right.
What would you think about going back and forth? Like I'll say something that I watched or did, and then you do one.
We could do that. It's just sometimes we get in a conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just easy to shotgun it. But let's try it this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like ping pong. You might actually keep the momentum going.
Let's try it. Let's do it.
I saw Eternals. I know you did too.
I saw Eternals as well, and the more we were gonna do a bonus episode, but you had some stuff that came up that was more pressing, and it's totally fine. We'll make it up at some point. We'll probably have to do 2 next month because I don't think we're gonna get a bonus episode out this month. But the more we talked about it, the less we liked it.
My reaction was kind of like, meh.
My reaction was meh when I came out, and then I started thinking about it more, and I started everything started to fall apart as I thought about it more.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where this ends up in people's power rankings of Marvel movies. I think it's solidly
dead last for me.
I think it's solidly at the bottom. I don't know if it's below Thor: The Dark World.
So I watched Thor: The Dark World a few weeks ago, and I thought it was better than I remember it. I think that for me, this is below Thor: The Dark World. I think this is my bottom Marvel movie.
That sucks, man. All right, you go.
So I've been traveling a lot. Had a lot of time. So I mentioned I was watching the Daredevil show not too long ago. I watched the first 2 seasons. Punisher's in the 2nd season. I love John Barenthal, so I decided to go back and I watched both seasons of the Punisher.
Nice.
And it holds up, and I really hope the rumors of him coming back to the MCU are true.
I think it's got to be. I think he's one of the most beloved and well-received characters that hasn't really been in a movie yet.
And he's such an underrated actor. He's fantastic. I saw a trailer for King Richard, which is the Serena and Venus Williams movie, and he plays a coach in it, and he's just he's playing out of character. He's super likable, and I was just like, fuck, this guy's great. I want to watch that movie for him, not Will Smith.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Back to me.
Yep.
Benchwarmers.
That movie. So I'm 12.
Yeah, I like similar like that, and Zohan, and a few other movies like that sort of hold a special place in my heart, or held. And I've gone back and rewatched some of those things in my 30s and been like, oh yeah, this is I understand why this was special to me at one point. Doesn't really hold up. There's still still some genuinely funny stuff, like Dave Matthews being a white supremacist and threatening to kill a cage full of puppies. It's still pretty funny.
There's certain movies, some of the Will Ferrell movies I've gone back to, and I'm like, ooh, these are rough. Yeah. And so I'm getting to a point where I almost don't want to go back to these old gems that I watched 1,000 times when I was in my teens and early 20s, because I don't want to ruin them. I watched Big Mouth season 5. Oh wow! Because once again, I've been traveling.
Is that the one where he says you fucking Brussels sprout?
I don't remember. It honestly, I don't even like the show that much, but it's just it's something I can throw on. They're only 22 minutes, and it's just easy. I did really like the finale because Nick Kroll came in live action and was talking to his animated self, and that interaction was really funny. And then they even commented one of the monsters sounds like Will Arnett, but it's actually Nick Kroll, and they're like, oh, we thought you were Will Arnett. And he's like, yeah, sometimes I do too. It was pretty funny.
Well, speaking of Nick Kroll, I watched a movie called Adult Beginners from 2014. Which is written by Nick Kroll and I think produced by the Duplass brothers. Okay. Yeah, it was pretty good. Him and Rose Byrne and Bobby Cannavale, who I think is... I think he's fantastic. I think he
always puts in a good performance.
Yeah, he's kind of underrated. I thought he was really good in that HBO show Vinyl too, and it didn't get a second season.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic.
Oh, I also
I was gonna say
speaking. I'm trying to shotgun a few. Speaking of Will Ferrell, I watched Blades of Glory too. Holds up better than the Benchwarmers.
Oh, that's good. So I'm just gonna put these two together because they're both Netflix movies. They're both not very good, but they were kind of fun. I watched Red Notice, and which I know you watched. The last 2 episodes that we've done, and during the what have you been up to? But I almost said I didn't watch Army of Thieves because I didn't have a really plan on watching it, but it was one of the things that was available for download, so I just watched it on the plane on my way home from Orlando, and it's not good. It wasn't very good, and it was just a lot of just.
Isn't it not even about zombies?
No, so the only way it links to Army of the Dead, obviously, besides having the character, is that they go, somebody recruits him to crack the safes, and they're like, now's the perfect time to do it because the zombie outbreak in Las Vegas is happening and the news is covering that. Nobody's even looking at other crimes. There's an Interpol agent who was like, oh yeah, this group of bad guys that I've been tracking, they're totally going to do a heist right now while the zombie things are going. And so it's just like, it was such a tentative, like just a loose thread. It was fucking
painfully
bullshit.
not interested in that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't very good. The only other reason I watched it was Natalie Emmanuel was in it from, Game of Thrones and the Fast and Furious movies, and I think she's incredible. I love her. So I watched it for her.
Word.
And it wasn't worth it.
Red Notice, I think we both really enjoyed, though.
It was stupid and it was bad, but it was fun.
Yeah. It's weird. It felt like it was a prequel to itself.
That's exactly what it feels like. And like, the issue
I'll watch another one, though.
It,
like, I will happily watch.
I will watch another one if it comes out. The only thing I didn't like about it, like, I thought the action was really good. Like, and there was some creative action with like that scaffolding escape fight.
Yeah, it was very Jackie Chan.
Actually, it was a more impressive scaffold fight than in Shang-Chi. I actually liked it more than that. But Ryan Reynolds, he's capable of being a good actor. He is very good in a lot of things.
He surprised me with he surprised me with like 30 seconds in this movie where I was like, oh, he's showing some range, and then he immediately undercut it.
He just completely goes back to like every time he's really good in Amityville Horror. He's really good in Smoking Aces. Even in Deadpool, he has some like really heavy moments in those. Sure. Like he's capable. He's a capable actor, but he just always defaults to Ryan Reynolds, and that's not how anybody talks in real life. But like the Ryan Reynolds shtick in movies, it's just like nobody talks like that.
I think Deadpool will do one or two more movies, and then we'll get a few years like with very little Ryan Reynolds stuff, and then I bet he makes a comeback as a more dramatic actor.
I hope so, because I think he's very capable of it, and I like him. But and then I'm just gonna finish off this last one. I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I cried.
Oh. I'm gonna see it I guess after the holiday now.
Excellent.
Cool. My last two are Psycho Gorman, which was a lot of fun, and Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, which was zero fun.
Psycho Gorman, you're like the second person to talk about that movie.
It's fun.
In like the last week. Somebody else I know watched it.
Yeah, it reminded me of Greasy Strangler, but like splattery.
Nice. All right. Summarize the next one for me, bud.
This is from, I want to give him a shout out, ResidentEvilFandom.com. ResidentEvil.fandom.com. It's like their wiki. Returning to the origins of the massively popular Resident Evil franchise, fan and filmmaker Johannes Roberts brings the games to life for a whole new generation of fans. Once the booming home of pharmaceutical giant Umbrella Corporation, Raccoon City is now a dying Midwestern town. The company's exodus left the city a wasteland with great evil brewing below the surface. Fuck, I was doing so well. When that evil is unleashed, the townspeople are forever changed, and a small group of survivors must work together to uncover the truth behind Umbrella and make it through the night. So this movie basically mashes the first two games together in a way that sort of creates a new story. It's definitely taking a few liberties with characters and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just, also combining the events of the two movies and really focusing on the second game. But it also is like a very tonally faithful adaptation. And I mean,
and there's a lot of Easter eggs too.
Yeah. And I mean, they're taking some liberties, but I would say 50% of the movie is like note for note things that happen in the games.
Well, and they actually got the like the blueprints to, a lot of the locations. So like the police station looks exactly like the police station.
That really struck me.
From the remake games. And that they're pretty close to the original. They just added rooms and made them larger and made the scaling make more sense. But yeah, they actually used and the mansion as well. They got blueprints from that as well.
That was one of the things they set out to. They said the remake of the second game was a wonderful cinematic experience with tone, constant darkness, and rain, and blah, blah, blah. And that's really, like, specifically the remake of the second game is the tone that they chose and made the model for this film.
Fantastic. I played that game like 3 times last summer. I really enjoyed that. And to a lesser extent, I actually really liked the third remake as well. And people don't like that one as much, but I honestly really liked both of them. I was actually really impressed by this. Like, you and I talked about the trailers, and I thought I thought this was going to be just a god-awful movie. I'm like, why did they even do this? And I was pleasantly, I guess we're going to say at the front, I was pleasantly surprised that like how much I enjoyed watching this
Yeah,
movie.
I think I might have even been like one notch above pleasantly surprised. Like I had a really good time. And I got to say, as a fan of Carpenter movies, like you can feel the John Carpenter influence in this, and I appreciate
agree,
it so
absolutely.
much. It was so much fun.
I think really my only issue with this is like I think like if they spent just a little bit more money on a little bit better actors, I don't particularly feel like any of the actors did that great of a job. Like I don't think they were necessarily terrible, although I think Robbie Amell is terrible.
But
I've hated him, and
he's barely in this, honestly.
And it's a good thing because I can't stand him in anything that I've seen him in the past. I didn't like him. And
I thought that
everybody else was fine.
Yeah, I think everyone was fine. I think Kaya, this is an Italian name, so I shouldn't fuck it up. Scodelario, Kaya Scodelario, Claire Redfield, did pretty well. You know, she's sort of the anchor of the movie, and I think she held it down.
I think she was definitely the strongest performance in the movie. I think she was pretty solid.
I like the dude that played Wesker too, Tom Hooper,
and he's from Game of Thrones and Umbrella Academy. He was okay. I think he did the best with the dialogue he was given. Like he wasn't given a lot to work with, but I think he did as much as you could with what he was given. My biggest disappointment, and like it wasn't because of the casting. There was a lot of controversy around the casting of Jill Valentine and Leon because they weren't white, and people threw a fit about it. And the director and the actors and everybody were like, well, we're trying to get more of the tone about the character. And Leon is my favorite character in the franchise, and I thought they did him dirty. Because he's supposed to be the rookie cop, but in the game he's a rookie cop, but he's a badass in the game that he's in. So he's in Resident Evil 2 and then he's in Resident Evil 4, and he is a badass in both both games. And in this, they made him like he was a complete fuck up. Like he fucked up everything in this.
I feel like there's more to that character that they're leaving to explore in the second movie, and I think if they get to make a second movie and they get more into Leon,
they leave the door open for it.
I think if they deliver on it, we'll look back on it and be like, all right, I get it, that was cool. But I feel where you're coming from. I'm reserving judgment a little bit.
I would say that's cool if they didn't make this whole thing of we're going to be accurate to the games, and even though he doesn't look like the character, he embodies the spirit of the character.
It fucked up your expectations.
This was not the spirit of the character. Like Leon is brave and he's a badass, but he's kind of quiet, like he's reserved. Not this like, yeah, I'm surprised I'm survived too, guys.
He's got a couple.
Hey, Chief, I'm not in charge. Where are you going, Chief?
He's got a couple scenes in the movie where he like unloads the whole clip into the zombie and like screaming and stuff, and then at the end where he fires the rocket launcher, that I felt like they were trying to imply that he's and we also don't know anything about his history, so I felt like they were trying to imply that he's got some kind of history that we're going to find out about later, where we're like, oh, he's running from something and he's got this dark past, or he's a lot more capable than he comes off. And he's like, he wakes up in a all hungover and shit at the beginning of the movie.
Well, and then he falls asleep on the job again and almost gets killed by a flaming zombie.
Yeah, so I think there's something else happening there. I'll hold up judgment.
To the movie's credit, like I think that is a huge knock against the movie. Like I think you enjoyed the movie a little bit more than I did, and I enjoyed the movie. But I was rolling my eyes every time he was on screen, and not that because of the actor. Like the actor was good. Like he delivered the lines well.
That's just what the character.
I was fine with the look. Like I think the actor is totally fine. I just didn't like the characterization. But getting into the things that they did well, like that opening scene where the trucker hits the zombie and then the zombie disappears and then comes back, like was it straight out of the game? It was great. They even had like to justify the puzzles. Like it would be kind of hard to put puzzles like you have in the game in a movie. But the way they got around that was like, oh, this is a secret mansion and that the eccentric, billionaire who created the company made. And Wesker's got a Palm Pilot that has a map, which, is a staple of the game. And then like it has the hints.
We should point out that this movie takes place in 1998. The Palm Pilot
which is kind of the first game came out.
Palm Pilot's kind of a funny thing because he's like, what the fuck is this? I've never seen technology like this before. And to all of us, it's like, that's 25 fucking years old.
Yeah, well, and then there's also a point when someone mentions the chat room and someone's like, what the fuck is a chat room? It's a place on the internet where people talk.
I've been like waiting for movies to start taking place in the 90s and really taking advantage of the lack of cell phones and the weird turnover of technology that happened.
But that was I thought that was funny. But then it also had like all the different like the heart shaped key and the winged key from the second game was great. And then going to the police station, then going to the orphanage, like it followed the story pretty close. And then it
didn't feel like it was like paying lip service to the games. I don't think.
No, not at all. Like it was just kind of there. Like they put it out there, and then God, I always forget his last name, but he's character actor Neil Mcdonough.
Yeah, Mcdonough.
He was in it, and he was like the creator or the lead scientist, and he shows up as like one of the mini bosses from Resident Evil 2. Right. I thought that was cool.
Eyeball
it was
shoulder
like,
guy.
Yeah, and then
on that note, though, you're talking about casting, and like Neil Mcdonough like rubs me the wrong way.
He's very inconsistent. There are times where he's in a movie, and I'm like, he was really good, and then there's times where he's in a movie, and I'm like, this was really bad. Like when I found out he was in this movie, I was like, oh, this is probably not a good movie.
Yeah, like I don't mind him in like Captain America.
He's good as a cameo.
Yeah, but there's other stuff where I'm just like, oh, I don't know, something about his cut rate Anthony Michael Hall look like just doesn't work for me.
He played Bison in that Chun-Li movie too. This is like the other Capcom movie that he did.
He's probably a great guy, and like there's going to be some time in the future where I get an opportunity to work with him, and he hears about this.
He's a bad person.
He's gonna hear this podcast and be like, "Oh, fuck this guy."
He does a lot of roles. He's working consistently. Good for him. Like
I will say
he's not great.
I wasn't stoked on seeing him in this movie, but like he committed. He wanted to be in this movie, and he was having a good time.
Yeah, that wig that he was wearing for like the flashback scenes was obviously a wig.
That was something, man.
But like the creature design, like I remember watching the trailer, and I thought the liquor looked absolutely terrible, but it looked solid in the movie.
Yeah, it was
like,
kind of it looked like kind of
really
a Sonic
good
situation, or they did some work on it.
Yeah, the final boss monster was still a little weird. Like the design didn't like it didn't look like something that would exist or mutate out of it. Like the skull didn't look like actual bone. Like I if this movie was delayed like another month or so and Sony wanted to throw like another $1 million at it, I think they could have really polished it up. But this was another one where like the zombies weren't really zombies. Like some of them were like super dead, like the ones in the mansion, because it had been some time. But like the ones in the town were technically still alive, which I thought made it kind of creepy. And it was a slow burn. Like you didn't actually see them fight anybody until maybe a good 45 minutes to an hour into the film.
Yeah, and that it was so cool to watch. It was so cool to watch the first one and then have the thought, which is what I said at the end of the last segment, is that I want to see a Resident Evil movie that focuses more on dread and terror and gothic aesthetic and more suspense than this like industrial heavy metal fucking martial arts whatever. And I felt like this movie kind of did exactly that, and then it also added this like John Carpenter siege movie element that I didn't even think of that I think works fucking perfectly.
Like honestly, the tone and like there were a few pretty good jokes in the movie. Like I thought this was going to be awful, and I think watching this after the 2002 one, I think definitely elevated this one. Like if I didn't watch the 2002 one before this one, I don't know if I would have liked it as much, but I still don't think I would have disliked it. Like I am on board for a sequel. Like I would watch another one of these. Yeah. So I think it did, and not just like begrudgingly like I did with the original franchise. Like I kind of want to see where it goes. The director said if he gets to do a sequel, it's going to borrow heavily from Resident Evil 4, which was actually the first game in the franchise I played. I started at 4, and then I played 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the remakes. So I'm a late comer to the franchise, but 4 is still probably my favorite game, and it's going to be hard to jump into 4 with Leon ending the way he did. Like, who's going to trust this guy to go save the president's daughter? I wouldn't, but who knows? Like maybe there's a time jump and he builds up. Who cares? We'll figure it out. That's not our job to do. So,
I hope that they make another one. The budget on this was only $25 million, and I don't think they spent that much on promotion. So it seems like it's within reach.
They didn't have a trailer for this until like a month ago. The first trailer came out like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and then the second trailer came out like 2 weeks after that.
And I haven't seen a whole lot of billboards or anything either.
No, I haven't. Like in $25 million, like it looks good for $25 million. Like there's a few scenes with explosions where the fireballs don't look great, and then at the end of the movie when the mansion collapses. didn't look great.
But I think in the tradition of Carpenter movies and movies that are influenced by Carpenter movies, you know, late 80s, early 90s, grungy, nihilistic action movies, as long as you're having fun, like, it doesn't matter. I think you forgive a lot of the budget shortcomings.
No, and like and it didn't look bad. Like, it just didn't look polished like a blockbuster movie we're used to. But we talked about Shang-Chi having some wonky CGI at certain points too. So, you know, you really can't complain. But I was very pleasantly surprised. And I mean, there were a few scenes that were pretty, like, you and I laughed very, very hard at like the last couple frames of the movie when they're like the explode, like there's like the nuclear explosion destroying the town and that cow goes flying. You and I were fucking dying.
I mean, I was on the side of the movie. I enjoyed that. I was laughing. I was laughing at the cow. I wasn't laughing because it looked bad.
No, it didn't look bad. Like, it actually, the effects looked fine. It was just kind of silly.
You know, this is a spoiler or whatever, but there's a nuclear explosion and you see like the whole thing unfold from, I don't know, 2 miles away, and it like comes towards you, and there's a cow in the foreground the entire time. And as the shockwave gets closer, the cow just levitates for like 2-3 seconds or whatever. And I thought it was such a fucking good touch. It's so clever and fun.
It was so funny. Like, it was a good way to end it. And it's just Raccoon. I think, unfortunately, having the title Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, like, it's kind of a goofy title and it's a mouthful. Yeah. It should have just been Resident Evil and just do a hard reboot, which is what it is. And like, if you can go Halloween as a sequel to the original Halloween, you know, 40 years later, I think you could have just kept it as Resident Evil.
I think you just answered your own question there, though. I think that they needed to make more of a point of separating it from the original movies because the brand is just not as powerful as something like Halloween. And they also don't have, not that Halloween has a ton of money behind it, but it's got a good amount. And other reboots that kind of keep the name or whatever have way more money for marketing and stuff.
Yeah, I just, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Maybe not the best.
Just sounds cheap.
Yeah, maybe not the best one.
Yeah, like maybe just Resident Evil Origins or something like that. That's a pretty safe one to do that a lot of people do, or just
Resident Evil.
I don't know. Yeah, or you know, or Resident Evil Umbrella Corporation or something. Like, you know, it could have been anything, any other subtitle. But Welcome to Raccoon City was a little goofy.
Well, they could have done Patient Zero, right?
Yeah, it could have been any of that. But on the whole, it was pretty entertaining. The only real thing that I thought was bad was when they first get into the mansion and the zombie, like, there's like kind of like a zombie horde, and one of the guys, like one of the soldier guys, immediately goes down fighting like 2 or 3. But Robbie Amell, in 2 different occasions, is like fighting 20 or 30 of them. Like, and there's one point where he's like fighting them in the dark, and he's just like using the muzzle fire from his gun to kind of see, and then he's using like a lighter at some point, and I was just like, how is it that he can fight 20 or 30 of these and everybody else goes down fighting 2?
He's very lucky.
Yeah, but you know, that was probably the weakest element, but on the whole, it's pretty entertaining movie.
Yeah, real good time. I think if you enjoy the games and you want to see a movie that's a little bit more faithful to the games, and especially if you enjoy The Thing, Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13, the Escape from New York or LA movies, if you enjoy Carpenter movies, you're really going to like this.
Yeah, be prepared for some camp. It is definitely a little campy, but it's not bad. Like, I think it set a pretty fun tone, and when it's supposed to be scary, you feel like, I don't think I was ever scared in the movie, but like, you can get that sense of dread that the characters were feeling. Like, it was a fun tone. But yeah, that's I'm repeating myself at this point, so I think we should wrap it up. And but yeah, I think this is an example of a remake done right. Like, whether or not it was a perfect movie, no, but it had all the elements. It did something different. It was faithful to the source material. It improved on the the original in some way, and it's different. It stands on its own. So I would say successful remake. Yeah.
I think maybe it's not fair to compare the 2 movies because they're different, but I think this is better than the Paul W.S. Anderson one.
No, it absolutely is. I think it's miles ahead in terms of quality, but it's also, you got 20 years of
sure
hindsight working.
That's not what we're talking about, though. We're just watching the 2 movies, saying which one's better. Yep.
Well, generally we don't do that, but this time we are saying it's better. But Cool. Well, give us your plugs, and we'll end this show.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Dysalexic, DYS Alex IC. I'm on Twitter at Polishi. I am on TikTok.
I want to do something for this one.
Mike is doing a drum roll of sorts, a paradiddle maybe, to build up that I now am on TikTok at Polishi. No longer Polishi. I got my own.
Although I kind of like that.
my
The
own
name's
name.
so nice you'd use it twice, but now it's just once.
No, it's much better.
But now all the people who've listened to our back catalogs, like if we get a new listener, like I'm going to go back,
listen,
they're going to be confused.
if you search Polishi, if you start typing Polishi on TikTok, then it'll still come up. Actually, it'll come up faster because it's just the one name.
Okay.
Yeah. But also, I'm on Letterboxd, also at Polishi. I just need to get Instagram to switch it over, and I'll have a monopoly on Polishi social media.
There you go. There you go. And you can check out everything that is MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, get early access to these episodes, bonus content, and whatnot, special shout-outs, you can follow us on patreon.com/MDXpods.
Also, shout out to Dono Logue, who was in this movie and fucking killed it.
Yeah, he was pretty fun in this movie.
We didn't mention him at all, but he was one of my favorite parts.
No. I mean, like, he was pretty inconsequential to the plot, but he was fun.
Yeah, like, as far as characters, he was one of the most fun characters to watch on screen.
No, he was good. Denny from Letterkenny was in this briefly and got, but, that's fine.
Okay, we're really done
Yeah.
now.
You're done. Bye. Turn off the thing.